Mr. S. Mahalingam, Chairman of CII's TCM Working Group, Mr. Raman, member and backbone of the CII TCM Working Group, my co-chair Manoj Sethi, Senior Vice President Subros Limited, Mr. Thiruvengadam, my friend Jai Shankar from Toyota, the dedicated CII gentlemen Mr. Mahidar and Nagesh Babu, who have been driving this TCM journey for very many years. Our guests from overseas, led by Professor Lakshman Vatawala, session chairman, distinguished guests, speakers, delegates, friends, captains of industry, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very warm welcome to you all on this 15th edition of International Conference on Total Cost Management. Friends, the way this Cost Congress has evolved and started to mature over the last 15 years, it has become quite customary to eagerly look forward to this marquee annual event and to be part of the impressive gathering of professionals from across spectrum of industries in India and abroad. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all living in a VUCA world, a world which is volatile, which is uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. As we can already see, the future isn't going to be what it used to be and is bound to be reshaped by, to my mind, three mega trends. Number one, digitalization. The digital world, everybody is nanoseconds away. We have more number of mobile phones than the population of the world. Robotic and digital manufacturing, 3D printing, public government is going to deliver a lot of its services through the digital world. Number two, the second very important mega trend is rapid urbanization. Just about in 1950, 1/3 of the world used to live in urban areas. By 2050, 2/3 of the world would live in urban areas. In India itself, between now and to 2050, that is about 35 years, we will add 50 crore people into urban areas, which means we are going to create 1.5 Americas in the next 35 years. Just imagine the humongousness of this change which is going to happen. However, with these two major trends, what is most important is sustainability, need for sustainability. You can't have technology for the sake of technology. The technology must solve some problems. So therefore, you will find that there's wide acceptance and solutions, even though they may be digital, high technology, will need to pass the test, three-pronged test. Number one test is economic viability. Is it economically viable over life cycle cost? Number two, is it socially inclusive? Is it catering to the bottom of the pyramid as well? That's going to be very important. And the third filter is environmental friendliness. Is your solution going to harm the planet or is going to be in tune with the planet? The recently finalized United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are going to be key to the future. Let's have a quick look at the world around us before we really get into the TCM mood for the next 2 days. I just want to touch upon what's really happening in the operating environment around us. Number one, the world economy has remained subdued in 2015. Growth in emerging markets and developing economies, even though it actually contributes to 70% of global growth, it has declined for the 5th consecutive year. Global growth is projected to slow down to 2.8 percentage points over the next 20 years compared to 3.1 percentage points GDP growth which happened in the last 20 years. This is as per Oxford Economics. So the world is going to grow over the next 20 years at 0.3 percentage points lower than it grew over the last 20 years. Growth in China is expected to further moderate. Japan has negative interest rates, negative growth at many times. Russia and Brazil, we are supposed to be part of the great BRICS economy, are actually having a very, very low growth. In fact, some of them are having negative growth. America has elected a new leader. Let's see what happens there. Brexit has become a reality, likely to be a reality. The European Union has its own challenges, including immigrants. People in Europe today, their income levels are about 15 to 20% lower than what used to be 15 years ago. That's the reality. That's another reality. There are, of course, geopolitical upheavals all around us. So, ladies and gentlemen, needless to say, in spite of our various fundamental structural challenges and global headwinds, India appears to be an oasis in an otherwise very barren global landscape. I think with the implementation of GST, widening of tax net, and war on black money, together with expected judicial and electoral reforms, we believe that India is going to be playing the game of life, which will, they will be the game changers of the future. So, of course, some of these reforms will be painful in the initial times, and which we are seeing today, demonetization is leading to some initial hiccups and perceptions in the minds of people. In terms of competitiveness, India has been ranked 39 out of 138 nations this year. Although India has improved by 16 spots, but we have tremendous challenges on logistics and infrastructure. The current logistics cost in India is around 13% of our GDP. And if you compare this with the rest of the world, average is about 8 percentage points, which means on an average, we spend 5% more of our GDP compared to the rest of the world, which this 5% translates to almost $100 billion. It's a huge amount of money. This can take care of the health of almost the bottom of pyramid of this country if used properly. So I think with GST coming in, dedicated freight corridors coming in, introduction of multimodal transport coming in, long-haul trucks coming in, I think this should change, and I think we should be able to generate a lot of wealth for bottom of pyramid. I remember having heard someone say, cost is more important than quality, but quality is the best way to reduce cost. I think this is very, very interesting. And I think Henry Ford added to that, competition is the keen cutting edge of business, always shaving away at costs. I think this is something very interesting. I'm sure with those words, these words will set you thinking and warm you up first thing in the morning. But before we get on with the business end of this Congress, I would like to briefly share with you my own perspective on TCM and its implication in today's fast-paced and disruptive world of business. TCM is a company-wide, systematic, structured approach which provides a holistic framework to identify, control, reduce, eliminate costs throughout the value chain. This process of managing a financial outcome of activities encompasses and touches all operations, internal as well as external. To take this all-important cost movement forward, which is so crucial to make India competitive, CI's TCM working group is spearheading a number of initiatives, the prime objective of which is to facilitate a national movement of cost management in order to help Indian industry, since firm-level competitiveness has been identified as the key ingredient in the recipe of success. In fact, the scope of cost management has come a long way from its earlier role of statutory accounting function. The evolution can be traced in 4 stages, and I'm sure Mr. Raman and Mr. Thiruvaram are going to speak about this important transition at some point during the course of this Congress. However, in this transformation of businesses, the 2 needs which will never get changed are: 1, the need for cost efficiency, basically more bang for the buck. I think this is the need all the time. And the second need is, how do we create an enhanced value proposition for our customer? The proposition as the customer sees it from his eyes and not what we see from our eyes. In other words, while adjusting the nuances of a fast evolving, new disruptive world, business leaders will need to perpetually drive the need for a robust business model built on the twin fundamentals of cost maturity across the value chain on one hand, and innovation including co-creation along with your customers for a superior value proposition. I think these 2 things are going to be the key going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, the Indian economy is emerging well from several years of slow growth and policy paralysis. With the new mode of governance and realization that only increased economic activity is the sole answer to India's fundamental challenges of poverty, education, skills, inclusion, and job creation, India can emerge as a global power in the upcoming decade. We have to get out of the denial mode, and all stakeholders from different ideologies, including political parties, Bureaucracy, industria, academia, media have to keep their differences on the back burner and agree to do everything required to accelerate economic activity. This is the key to create jobs. Such as that as a nation, we can create 1 million jobs per month for the next 10 years. And that's what we need if you really want to use this as a demographic dividend instead of a demographic nightmare. Robert Kaplan, one of the world's leading business strategists and inventor of balanced scorecard, talked about how in growth times people become exuberant. They start recruiting employees, launching new products, and spending widely. Sustained growth hides negative economic fundamentals such as unprofitable relationships and products. It's only when the tide goes out, when recession hits, that the true cost of doing business gets exposed. You then suddenly find yourself in the midst with a bunch of unprofitable customer relationships, products, and delivery channels. Under profitability pressures, most businesses tend to focus on cost reduction and cost optimization initiatives in pockets and functional silos, such as shop floor exercises, suppliers, administrative expenses, so on and so forth. However, the customer value proposition and costs reside outside and across the entire value chain of business, including R&D, marketing, sourcing, logistics, production, selling, human resources, finance, accounting, everything which you can conceive of. As Michael Porter said once, the goal of each of these functions is to offer and provide value that exceeds the cost of their activities. I think this is very important. Each function, while we may be a cost center, each function has to really find out how much value do they create, and is that value more than the cost which they consume. So I think this is something very important, and indeed, the Indian businesses are passing through exciting phase in their journeys. Market and economies have historically been prone to fluctuations. Corporate performance, including profitability, is generally not resilient to external shocks such as muted demand, currency fluctuations, volatile commodity prices, and interest rates. To attain sustainable competitive advantage, innovative strategies in some of the successful enterprises. I've done some bit of work, and we picked up some companies to see how they have been consistently making profits and how they are outliers. And we find the common thread across 4 things. Number 1, embed cost strategies into fundamental elements of business. Number 1, very, very important. Number 2, develop a blueprint for cost-efficient value chain. Number 3, cost and value-driven product design. This is very important, cost and value-driven. And last but not the least, embed cost culture with all business associates. I think a lot of this cost culture and cost tools are in the mind, are in the head. And this subject is so complicated and so complex that you need all the tools in the box to be used so that you can become sustainable forever and ever. Ladies and gentlemen, given the current business imperatives, the theme for this year's Cost Congress has been aptly chosen as TCM, the mantra for business success in turbulent times. Over the next 2 days, the one thing I can assure you is that you will have some enlightening and enriching learnings and sharing on principles and protocols of cost efficiency, as well as insightful sessions on practices and methodologies that can be used to gain competitive edge. We have amongst us, I also acknowledge the arrival of my friend Sheshagiri Rao from JSW. Thank you very much. So we have amongst us in this Congress some very illustrious and outstanding speakers who will share their experiences, best practices, learnings, failures, and I think that's the ultimate idea of this Cost Congress, that we go back a lot more enriched and we go back and try some of those great learnings from each other. I conclude by way of a reminder on the imperative of cost efficiency, quoting Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship." Thank you, and wish you highly profitable and enjoyable next 2 days. Thank you very much.